Nikki, I show us lacking 6 alders. Is that correct?
I think we have 15 total, so missing 5.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Alder Bennett just let me know she'll be a little late. Joe, I see that Denise Jess is here in the attendees.
Thank you.
As is Paul Terranova. Nikki, I still have us lacking 3 alders. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think we're going to go ahead and get started and hope that our colleagues join us shortly. So I will call to order the Common Council meeting of Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alder Conklin?
Present. Sorry.
Hurry?
Here.
Evers?
Here.
Figueroa Cole?
Here.
Foster,
Here.
Furman,
Present.
Halverson,
Present.
Harrington McKinney,
Present.
Heck,
Here.
Lemmer,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Miadze, Verveer, Alder Verveer, Vitiver,
Here.
Wahelia,
Here.
Abbas,
Here.
Alboris,
Here.
Benford, Benford,
Present.
thank you, Bennett,
Here.
and Alder Carter. All right, Madam Mayor, we have quorum.
Thank you. Can we please have the meeting instructions?
Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. City staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the Common Council, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll just remind us all that everyone is here with good intentions to try and do their best for the city, and I ask us to be respectful of each other and in particular to refrain from using profanities. We'll start with suspension of the rules. President Abbas, a motion, please.
Yes. Move motion to suspend Rule 2.04, Order of Business 2.05, Introduction of Business 2.24, Ordinances, and 2.25 Resolutions for items so designated on agenda.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to suspend the rules. Is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor of suspension of the rules? Seeing no objection, we'll record a unanimous vote and the rules are suspended. Our first item is honoring resolutions. Item number 1 is Legistar 67539, proclaiming October 15th, 2021 as White Cane Safety Day in the city of Madison. President Abbas, can we get a motion, please?
Move motion to adopt.
Second.
It's been seconded to adopt. It's my pleasure to read this honoring resolution. Whereas blindness and severe visual impairment affect approximately 100,000 Wisconsin residents, and whereas the majority of these persons use travel aids, such as a white cane or a service animal, to get around public streets and sidewalks and places of public accommodation, and whereas these travel aids are universally recognized as symbols representing vision loss, and whereas Wisconsin's white cane law requires that motorists come to a full stop before approaching closer than 10 feet to a pedestrian who's using a white cane or a service animal, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Common Council do hereby proclaim Thursday, October 15th, 2021 as White Cane Safety Day in the city of Madison. And we are joined tonight by Denise Jess to accept this honoring resolution. Denise, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would. Thank you so much. Good evening, Madam Mayor and alders and city staff. Thank you so much for the passage of the White Cane Day resolution and for the opportunity to speak with you. I'm Denise Jess, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I'm also very honored to serve on the city's Transportation Commission. As a person who has been legally blind since birth, I bring lived experience to all that I do. The Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired is a nearly 70-year-old statewide organization, nonprofit organization based here in Madison. I know many of you have been by our offices on Willie Street. And our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of people living in the state who are blind and visually impaired through advocacy, education, and vision services. Pedestrian safety is among our top priorities for advocacy work because as people with vision loss, we are particularly vulnerable pedestrians. We are reliant on safe, walkable communities and reliable and affordable and accessible public transportation. So every day as a pedestrian in this community, I experience what happens when people follow the traffic rules of stopping for pedestrians in the crosswalk and following the signals and paying attention to posted speed limits. And that helps my feeling of safety. But there are also many days when I do not have the luxury of experiencing that safety and have many, many close calls that are incredibly frightening. So as the resolution says, Wisconsin's law it adds an extra provision for those of us who are particularly vulnerable pedestrians by instituting the white cane law, which requires drivers to stop 10 feet from a pedestrian using a white cane or using a service animal who is in the roadway. I'm so grateful for all that the city does to create more safety and comfort for pedestrians, particularly through establishing the high injury network and the Vision Zero initiative. Those are really profoundly important pieces of work. And I know that, our work is not done in this area, that we still have pedestrians in the roadway who feel unsafe and who have experienced death over this past year. So I really want to invite all of us to continue to be really vigilant in creating a safe, walkable pedestrian environment for all Madisonians, particularly any of us who are vulnerable users. And I want to commend city staff in particular for the exquisite job that you all do in reaching out to those of us in marginalized communities to ask us and learn from our experience to that in the measures that are put in place for pedestrian safety. So once again, my warmest thanks to you all for the passage of this resolution and for your continued work on pedestrian safety. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions or further discussion, and I can be found at our website at wcblind.org, or feel free to follow us on social media. So again, thank you for your service to the city, and thank you for this great opportunity.
Thank you, Denise, for all of your incredible work and advocacy in our community and around the state. I know we're all very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
And you are getting a virtual round of applause on the Zoom screen.
Thank you.
So then, without further ado, is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor of the honoring resolution? Seeing no objection, that vote is recorded and the resolution passes. That will take us to item number 2, which is Legistar 67595, in honor, recognition, and appreciation of Paul Terranova. And I think we will assume that Alder Conklin will move and Alder Furman will second. And I will turn it over to Alder Conklin to begin reading this resolution.
Thank you so much, Mayor. It's with great honor that I am able to read this. So let me begin. Whereas Paul Terranova began as executive director of the then Wexford Ridge Neighborhood Center on June 16, 2000, and has guided the center with visions, values, and dedication for 21 years as it evolved into the Lusher Community Education Center. And whereas he has built on the principles of the founders to expand the organization into a vibrant, diverse, and vital community center sustained by relationships in which all are respected, encouraged to share their gifts and support the center's mission of building community, enriching education, and creating opportunity. And whereas his leadership and policy making has reflected his commitment to the Legistar framework with the several fundamental components, including racial and social justice. And whereas he has guided the creation and expansion of a rich array of programs, including food and employment support, Many Voices, One Community Radio at 95.5 FM, the Buffett Scholars, the Neighborhood Organizing Institute, and other initiatives. And
whereas he has fostered partnerships with residents of Wexford Ridge Apartments and surrounding neighborhoods, schools, businesses, service clubs, faith communities, art groups, universities, and colleges, and others to create a welcoming place with rich opportunities where children, families, neighbors, and diverse groups across Madison can learn, grow, and work towards a healthy, vibrant, and more just society. And whereas he has demonstrated an extraordinary ability to bring diverse people together to build strong community and has been a mentor and inspiration for countless people in Madison, Dane County, and beyond. And whereas he has been an esteemed leader in bringing all of Madison's neighborhood centers and other social justice organizations to a place of collaboration, cooperation, and support. Now there be resolved that the mayor and common council express gratitude for and recognize that Paul Terranova has made an enormous and an invaluable contribution to the city of Madison and the many people from all walks of life who have benefited from being a part of the Legistar community that he led, and wish him all the best in the future.
And Paul is with us tonight. I do want to note we have several registrants in support not wishing to speak, and the council can see your report on that. But Paul, congratulations. Thank you for your work. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. This is wonderful. I'm, particularly, I know a number of you on Common Council, and we've worked together for a long time, and yeah, it means a lot to have this come from you, and particularly from Alder Conklin and Alder Furman, with whom I've worked for a long time. I always I appreciate that someone took some time with the wording of that, because so often as neighborhood center directors, we get given too much credit for what happened. And I see that someone was careful about noting that there have been lots of people who have made the Legistar Community Education Center what it was. I also just want to say thank you. The city of Madison has, unlike a lot of cities, has really viewed neighborhood centers and community centers as infrastructure, which I think they are. They're the infrastructure of community, the infrastructure of engagement and citizenship. And I appreciate you having that vision and that continued and kind of enduring support for the work that centers do, and for creating new ways for community members to take care of each other through community centers. I'm sure there's a whole lot more I'd love to say, but I'm touched, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you, Paul. And for those watching at home, Paul's getting another virtual round of applause. And so it is moved and seconded. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know if it's proper, but I need to say that Paul has been, I'm not even in his district, but he has been a lifelong mentor to me and a supporter to me. And much that I am, I could attribute it to just being able to sit in his presence and see how he operates, how he works, and how he does such a tremendous job as bringing people together and having people to care for each other. And so, Paul, I want you to know that I am so deeply indebted with the investment that you made within me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. I too count myself amongst those inspired and challenged and learning from you, Paul. So thank you again for all of your work and the incredible contributions you've made to our community. I assume that there is no objection to recording a unanimous vote enthusiastically in favor of the honoring resolution. Seeing no objection, that vote is so recorded. Thank you again, Paul. Our next item is number 3, Legistar 67655, proclaiming Indigenous Peoples Day in Madison. Alder Figueroa Cole. Alder, you had your hand raised?
I bet.
Okay, thank you, Alder. So I'm going to invite Vice President Martin to make this motion.
Move approval.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Vice President Martin, will you do the honor of reading this resolution?
I will, thank you. Whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day began in commemoration of 500 years of survival and renewal of Indigenous nations in the face of genocide, colonization, political, religious, and cultural repression. And whereas the city of Madison recognizes that the Indigenous peoples of this hemisphere that would later become known as the Americas have lived on these lands since time immemorial, and the city recognizes the fact that Madison is built upon the lands of the Indigenous people of this region. And whereas this Indigenous culture was disrupted and destroyed in Madison, as in all parts of this hemisphere, and yet Indigenous peoples survive and continue to resist against current injustices and oppression. And whereas the City of Madison will continue to support Indigenous nations' struggles for social and environmental justice, religious freedom, and tribal sovereignty, equity, and whereas the City of Madison honors our country's Indigenous roots and history and seeks with this celebration to bring greater understanding to the people of Madison regarding Indigenous cultures and the enormous contributions they have made and continue to make to our nation and to the City of Madison. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and the Common Council of the City of Madison does hereby affirm and proclaim that Monday, October 11th, 2021, will be Indigenous Peoples Day.
Thank you, Vice President Martin. And we have Nicole Solier here to accept this proclamation. Nicole?
Wena buju, nino debikad, nakomas makwa ki kwe nindiginakas. Anishinaabe indao, muskajibi nindunjaba, inda de jop nongom, makwa ndudem. Hello, good evening. My name is Nicole Solier. I'm an enrolled member of the Bad River Ojibwe. Today I live here in Dejope, which means 4 lakes in the language of the people of the Sacred Voice. This area also known to many as Madison, Wisconsin. I want to say miigwech to the Ho-Chunk Nation for their role in being the original stewards of the land in which I'm able to live, work, and raise my family. For the past 17 years, I've lived here in the Madison area. I've worked at Madison College for all but 4 of those years, where I'm currently a community engagement coordinator in the Office of the President. So to the council and everyone here, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here with you all today. As a resident of the City of Madison, I accept the resolution to recognize, honor, and celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. As a mother, as an educator in public service, and as a member of this community, I think it's important that we rethink how we collectively support Indigenous peoples with resolutions for the future. The idea of recognizing and honoring Indigenous peoples is long overdue. The last few years, we've seen an increasing number of cities and institutions across the nation also celebrating this day. So I applaud the city and everyone here today for keeping that momentum going. It's clear that replacing the colonial holiday known as Columbus Day with a single day to recognize and honor Indigenous people is a step in the right direction. But it's just the beginning to building a collective resolution with action to right the wrongs that this country has waged against its First Peoples. To start, we must also think and act beyond a day to recognize Indigenous peoples, because one day does not undo over 500 years of colonialism. It's important for us to work to resolve the historical warfare against our communities. Think about how this day is celebrated and think about how it's taught to future generations. So while our Indigenous values, our ways of knowing, culture, and language have existed alongside us for millennia, Indigenous people are also a contemporary people. We are here today. This resolution is important to show that Indigenous people are not a thing of the past. We do not only live in history books. We are more than just a holiday. We are a celebrated part of this community. So in light of this resolution, I encourage you all to pursue even more critical ways to be in solidarity and advocate for Indigenous peoples, Indigenous families, and Indigenous communities. Miigwech, thank you for your time this evening and for moving towards a resolution to celebrate Indigenous peoples.
Thank you. And you also are getting a virtual round of applause. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objection, we'll record that unanimous vote. And thank you again, Nicole. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have no petitions or communications tonight, and we have no early public comment. So that will bring us to the consent agenda. President Abbas?
At this time, our consent agenda will be moved with a recommended action listed for each item except number 1 item which has registrant wishing to speak, number 2 item which require extraordinary roll call vote and are not included on the consent agenda by unanimous consent, and number 3 is item with all persons have separated out for discussion and debate purposes. Agenda item number 5 to 15 are public hearing items. The following items are extra majority items. Extra majority vote items will be recorded as unanimous votes unless a roll call or exclusion is requested. Agenda item number 37, legislative file number 67298, amending the 2021 capital budget for stormwater utility and awarding public works contract 8525, requires 15 votes. Agenda item number 44, legislative file number 67409, a resolution amending the 2021 public health operating budget to accept $3,339,800 from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services American Rescue Plan Act funding to support ongoing COVID-19 response and recovery effort, requires 15 votes. Agenda item number 49, legislative file number 67447, awarding public works contract number 9050, all-in park facility improvements and amending the 2021 adopted capital budget for the park division and engineering facilities management, requires 15 votes. Agenda items part of the consent agenda with additional recommendation as noted. Agenda item number 31, legislative file number 67061, substitute amending section 2.01 and 2.15 of Medicine General Ordinances to clarify the process for designating a location and the means of conducting individual common council meeting. Recommended action is to adopt substitute. Agenda item number 7, legislative file number 67124, public hearing item regarding new license LX Tokyo Sushi Inc. And just one second, I believe that is re-referred to ALRC. Correct, Madam Mayor?
That's correct.
Yep, recommended action is to refer to ALRC. Agenda item number 18, legislative file number 66788, establishing a glass-free zone for the State Street area from 9 p.m. on October 29, 2021 to 5 a.m. on October 30th, 2021, and from 9 p.m. on October 30th, 2021 to 5 a.m. on October 31st, 2021. And recommended action is to adopt. Legislative file number Agenda item number 19, legislative file number 67102, accepting the final report from the Task Force on Digital Inclusion Strategic Priorities, and recommended action is to adopt. Agenda item number 60, legislative file number 67432, authorizing the city to execute a non-competitive services contract with ACOM Technical Services, Inc. for a Phase 3A 60 and 90% design engineering services associated with EW Bus Rapid Transit. And recommended action from TPPB is to adopt. Item requested for exclusion. Agenda item number 42, legislative file number 67405, authorizing the city execution of purchase and sales agreement between City of Madison and Denlily LLC or their successor, and assigns for the purchase of property located at 1902 Bartillon Drive in the City of Madison to provide the city with both short-term and long-term option to address homelessness. Recommended action is to approve. Agenda item number 47, legislative file number 67422, authorizing the city execution of a purchase and sales agreement between the City of Madison and BIP Enterprises LLC or their successor, and assigns for the purchase of the property located at 2002 Zy Road, the property in the City of Madison for use as a temporarily men's homeless shelter and as a long-term site for redevelopment. Recommended action is approved. Introduced from the floor, legislative file number 67690, adopting APM 2-53 COVID-19 vaccination/testing policy to apply to all order. Recommended action is referred to Common Council Executive Committee. Legislative file number 67713, supporting the application by the Greater Madison Music City Collective Impact Group to the Economic Development Administration for a Build Back Better Challenge grant. Recommended action is referred to Common Council on October 19th. Next is intro by the title only, authorizing an execution of a memorandum of understanding between City of Madison and the mayors for a guaranteed income. Recommended action is referred to Common Council October 19th meeting. Legislative file number 67718, intro by the title only, amending the 2021 adopted Park Division capital budget and authorizing the execution of a purchase and sales agreement between City of Madison and Cherokee Park, Inc. for the city's purchase of approximately 22-acre located at the southeast corner of North Sherman Avenue and the Wheeler for the expansion of a Whitetail Ridge Park and the preservation of urban forest canopy. Recommended action is referred to Finance Committee on October 25th, Board of Park Commission on October 13th, and Plan Commission on October 18th.
All right. So there are a couple of other items with registrants. Those are number 45 and 58. Are there other items that alders wish to have excluded from the consent agenda? Alder Harrington McKinney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 42, 6740.
Item 42 is already excluded from the consent agenda.
Okay, and 31, 67061.
31,
And
okay.
47, 67422.
All right. Are there any additional exclusions from the consent agenda? Are there any disclosures or recusals on any items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, then let me just go through one more time. We have public hearing items 5 through 15. Our extra majority items are items 37, 44 and 49. And we have additional recommendations on items. Item 18, the action is to adopt. On item 19, the action is to adopt. And item 60, the action is to adopt. We have excluded from the consent agenda items 31, 42, 45, 47, and 58. We have 4 items introduced from the floor. And we have registrants not wishing to speak on the following items. Number 22, we have 3 in opposition. Number 23, we have 2 in support. Number 36, we have 2 in support. And number 44, we have 1 in support. Alder Harrington McKinney, did you have an additional item?
Yes,
Alder, you've muted yourself.
my question is just for information. Where is intro by title only, authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Madison and mayors? Is that mayors or mayor?
That's mayors.
Mayors for a guaranteed income. And I'd like to add a referral to CCEC.
Alder, if you wish to refer it, you certainly can. This is an item of with some timeliness, and we do have a task force that's working on this. This is regarding our guaranteed income pilot, which the council has already supported.
So let me withdraw that. And so maybe I just need additional information and I'll contact your office for that additional information. So I withdraw that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. I'd be happy to share additional information with you. Are there any other exclusions, disclosures, or recusals on the consent agenda? All right, does anybody need me to go through the numbers again? No. Okay. All right, so then on the consent agenda, President Abbas has moved and
I will second.
Vice President Martin will second. Is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote on the consent agenda? Seeing no objection, we'll record a unanimous vote on the consent agenda. And we will move to our public hearing items, which starts with number 5, which is Legistar 67109. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Aftershock Classic Arcade. We have no registrants on item 5. I will close that public hearing and President Abbas, a motion.
Move motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant. Is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor of granting? Seeing no objection, that item is granted. Item 6 is Legistar 67110. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Dark Horse. On item 6, we have 2 registrants in support available to answer questions. One is Patrick DePula of Monona, Wisconsin, who is the applicant, and the other is Samuel of District 20. Are there any questions for our registrants? Seeing no questions, I will close that public hearing. President Abbas?
Okay, I was just checking if I'm mute. Move motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor of granting? Seeing none, that item is granted. Item 7 is Legistar 67124. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Tokyo Sushi. We have 1 registrant in support wishing to speak, Sun Chen Lin of District 6.
Mayor, there's no by that name in the list.
Right, so we will recess that public hearing. President Abbas?
Move motion to re-refer to ALRC.
Second.
Moved and seconded to re-refer to the ALRC. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, that item is re-referred. Item 8 is Legistar 67126. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Burke and Benham Seafood. We have no registrants on item 8. I'll close that public hearing. President Abbas.
Motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, that item is granted. Item 9 is Legistar 67135. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Tobacco Outlet Plus 514. On item 9, we have one registrant, David Ring of La Crosse, Wisconsin, in support, available to answer questions representing Quick Trip. Are there any questions for our registrant? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing. President Abbas.
Move motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, that item is granted. Item 10 is Legistar 67136. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Jackknife. On item 10, we have no registrants. We'll close that public hearing. President Abbas.
Move motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant item 10. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, we'll record that vote and that item is granted. Item 11 is Legistar 67139. I'll open a public hearing on a new license for Strings Ramen Wisconsin LLC. And item 11, we have no registrants. We'll close that public hearing. President Abbas.
Move motion to grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded to grant item 11. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, that item is granted. Item 12 is Legistar 67404, approving plans, specifications, and a schedule of assessments for North Pleasant View Road Assessment District 2022. I'll open a public hearing. We have no registrants on item 12. I'll close that public hearing. President Abbas.
Move motion to adopt.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt number 12. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing none, that item is adopted. Item 13 is Legistar 67001, the 2022 Executive Capital Budget as amended by the Finance Committee. We have no registrants on item 13. So I will recess that public hearing, and President Abbas, a motion to refer to the November 9th Common Council meeting.
Move motion to refer to November 9th Common Council meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded to refer. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor of referral? Seeing none, that item is referred. Brings us to item 14, the report of the Plan Commission, which is Legistar 67074. The second substitute, recreating sections of the MGO to remove consideration of proposed future use for demolition applications and create limited administrative approval for some demolition categories. I'll open a public hearing on item 14. We have one registrant in opposition wishing to speak, Dr. Mara Aish of District 10.
Good evening. I'm concerned about why we're having one specific category of types of demolitions being exempt. But my main concern is whether or not city-funded affordable housing projects that involve demolition will still be included in the demolition list that the public is able to see. As long as that's there and the public can see that demolition's occurring, well, I guess that at least allows us to know what's going on, but it still feels like we're just trying to not get all of the information out to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no further registrants on this item. Are there any questions for our registrant? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing. President Abbas?
Move motion to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt. Are there any questions or discussion? President Abbas?
Yeah, quick question for the Heather to address regarding the Dr. Myra Aish question. I'm curious to hear from the planning staff on that. Thank you.
Director Stouter?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So yes, generally, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of a very narrow grouping of items that could be administratively approved, but all of them would still require informal review by the city's Landmarks Commission and would only be eligible for administrative approval if first the city's Landmarks Commission made a finding that there was no historic significance with regard to the existing building. And then also on top of that, if one of this very short list of characteristics was met. One on the list is, if the Landmarks Commission has a green light finding that basically the existing building has no historic significance and the proposal involves city-funded affordable housing, that demolition could be administratively approved by the city's building inspection director and avoid the need to go to the Plan Commission for approval. However, the address of that demolition that's proposed would still be listed on a Landmarks Commission agenda, and it would still be informally reviewed by the Landmarks Commission following the notice that goes out to interested parties for all demolitions in the city. And so yes, in general, every demolition of a principal building will still be publicly known prior to its approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Abbas. Any further questions or discussion on item 14? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, we'll record a unanimous vote in favor of item 14. Item 15 is Legistar 67120, creating sections of the MGO to rezone properties at 341 State Street, 317 through 321 West Gorham, and 322 West Johnson Street. I will open a public hearing on item 15. We have two registrants in opposition, neither wishing to speak. One is Jessica Dye from District 4. The other is William Dye from District 12. Are there questions for either of our registrants? Seeing none, I will recess that public hearing. President Abbas?
Move motion to re-refer to October 19th Common Council meeting.
Second.
I believe the motion is to refer back to the Plan Commission.
Yep, you're right.
Sorry.
No, that's right. Correct. I will make a correction. Move motion to refer to Plan Commission.
And I'll second that too.
Thank you. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to re-refer. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor of re-referral? Seeing none, that vote is recorded. That item is referred. And that is the end of our public hearings. So we will come next to item 31. Give me a moment. All right, item 31 is Legistar 67061, a substitute amending sections of the MGO to clarify the process for designating a location and the means of conducting individual common council meetings. The recommended action out of CCEC, I believe, is to adopt. Let's first get a motion, President Abbas.
Move motion to adopt substitute.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the substitute. On item 31, let's start with any questions for staff.
Mayor, I just wanted to make a point of order that was corrected on the consent agenda. The action actually out of CCEC was, I believe, to place it on file, the original version, and the agenda that was provided to alders was incorrect as far as what the action that was taken at CCEC. Since CCEC, I have introduced a substitute, and there was a note on the agenda for recommending adoption. But I just wanted at least the record to be clear that CCEC did reject the original, and that tonight we are considering a substitute.
Thank you for that clarification, Alder Furman. All right, so what's before us is adoption of the substitute. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. There was a lively discussion at CCEC on item number 31. And one of the questions that I had, and I'll put the question out there, is that we have an ad hoc committee called TFOGS that's been working really diligently with the purpose of making a more efficient process for how we conduct city business. And I was not clear, and I don't know who to ask this clarification, is that should this be something that would be discussed under TFOGS and not making this recommendation for approval at this stage? So it's out there and I don't know where it rests, and I'm sure, Madam Mayor, you'll tell me where it rests, but that's what my question is, and I don't know where to direct it, but that's what my question and concern is.
Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. I'm going to take a wild guess and ask Attorney Haas to weigh in on this. My understanding, Alder, is that there's actually some urgency because we are not currently in compliance with our own ordinances regarding our method of meeting. So I'd be a little wary of a re-referral to another body. But Attorney Haas, are you with us and able to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. That is correct on the basic point about the council meetings currently do not have a public health declaration that would support meeting virtually. Any referral can be made to another committee. CCEC is the committee that has jurisdiction regarding the structure of the council. I don't know specifically if TFOGs address this and whether it would be appropriate for the TFOGs implementation committee. I would just say I don't think it's required to go there, but any other can make a motion to refer it.
Okay, as a follow-up, in terms of the city violating its own ordinances, I mean, we've had examples of that. My question is that the TFOGs and the members of the TFOGs have been very, very specific in the intent of going through and making our government and our processes more efficient. And I'm not sure, is this something that we should be looking at as well? And not to look at it was a concern to me. And so that was my question. Should this appropriately be before the TFOGs committee?
So Alder Harrington McKinney, my understanding, and the attorney can speak up if he disagrees with me, is that the current TFOGs committee is actually focused on implementing the TFOGs report that was generated by the resident committee. The TFOGs report, in my memory, came out before COVID-19 and did not discuss the need to meet virtually due to a pandemic, or I guess for other reasons. I believe it did talk about expanding ways that the public could offer public comment, but I don't think it spoke to the actual need for this body or others to be able to meet virtually on a regular basis. So I think it it is probably not proper to refer to the TFOG's implementation committee, an item that was not contemplated in the original TFOG's report. Any additional questions, Alder Harrington McKinney? No. Alder, you've muted yourself again.
No,
Okay.
I don't have any additional questions.
Right. Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. President Abbas.
I have a comment, not question.
I don't believe there's anybody else wishing to ask questions, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So at CCC, we had a really good discussion, and I appreciate Alder Furman, especially working with the council office and ironing out some of the details which give us as a council office flexibility to work on future dates. So with that, I will support that, and thank you for working with the council office.
Thank you, President Abbas. Is there any further discussion on item 31? Alder Harrington McKinney.
One additional question. When the president indicated that Alder Furman had worked with the council office, could Madam Mayor, could the president or the sponsor of this amendment expand on what that meant? And so they don't have to answer, but I'm addressing that question to you.
Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. I believe that Alder Furman is willing to address your question. Alder Furman?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alder McKinney, for that question. I did reach out to Madeline and asked to talk about it, and to be quite frank, I apologize for having not asked sooner. It is my understanding that she spoke to both Karen and Debbie in the office and got feedback from them, and we had a incredibly productive discussion on which generated substitute 2 to address staff's concerns about ultimately their concern was not having short notice to move to a different in-person location, but it was a productive discussion that did, Madeline made clear was made sure that she had asked both Debbie and Karen their feedback as well. And I think, from that I know from the feedback from Madeline, I was able to, propose the alternative, which addresses their concerns.
Thank you, Alder Furman. Alder Harrington McKinney, anything additional?
Yes, this is my additional statement. We're in the process of hiring a chief of staff, and I'm not sure if there is a sense of urgency, and that seems to be a discussion that would have happened with the chief of staff and the staffing of the office, and so that's just a consideration that I have. For clarification. So that's my additional question in terms of the follow-up in terms of what Alder Furman just added.
Alder Harrington McKinney, I'm honestly not sure of the relevance of the chief of staff position to this conversation. Obviously, they would be involved in the specifics of future council meetings, but at this point, we need to be able to authorize ourselves to continue to meet virtually. Otherwise, we're going to have to come back and meet in person. So, Alder Carter? You're muted, Alder Carter.
At that point, I'm asking for a roll call.
I would be happy to call a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. The motion is to adopt the substitute, and a roll call has been requested. So all those in favor of adopting the substitute, aye. Those opposed, no, as your name is called, and the clerk will call the roll.
Alder Bennett.
Aye.
Aye. Carter.
Come back to me, thank you.
Conklin.
Aye.
I, Curry.
Aye.
I, Evers.
Aye.
I, Figueroa Cole.
Aye.
I, Foster.
Aye.
I, Furman.
Aye.
I, Halverson.
Aye.
I, Harrington McKinney. Harrington McKinney, I think you're muted.
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain. Heck.
Aye.
I, Lemmer.
Aye.
I, Martin.
Aye.
I, Miadze.
Aye.
I, Verveer.
Aye.
I, Vidiver.
Aye.
I, Wahelia.
Aye.
I, Abbas.
Aye.
I, Alboris.
Aye.
I, Benford.
Aye.
I, and Alder Carter.
Abstain.
Abstain. That's 18 ayes and 2 abstains.
With 18 ayes, the item passes, and we will move on to item 42, which is Legistar 67405, authorizing the execution of a purchase and sale agreement for property at 1902 Bartillon Drive. And we have a number of registrants on item 42, starting with Shari Patzer of District 17, to be followed by Mara Aish.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Sherry Patzer, and I live and work near this particular property, formerly the sports club. This property has been vacant for an extraordinary amount of time. And in addition to that, it's pretty dilapidated. It's got a large hole in the roof. And I'm trying to understand why we are moving forward when there is not a clear path regarding what this property will be used for. I have not seen anything regarding what the plan is other than for homeless information, for a potential homeless shelter. I don't think it's fiscally responsible, in my personal opinion, to be purchasing this property without having an idea of what additional expenses might be incurred or exactly what is planned for this. So I would like to request that this be denied, and hope that from a financial standpoint, as well as from, as well as from an understanding standpoint, that you agree with my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Mara Aish of District 10, to be followed by Michonne Adams.
I'm going to iterate what the previous caller had said, that I'm never in support of things that we approve and a project without knowing where it's going or what it's going to be. I do think the property looks like great potential, but more information would be better to have prior to moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Michonne Adams of District 4, to be followed by Evelyn Gildrey-Voiles.
There's no that name in the list, but Evelyn is here.
All right, then Evelyn Gildrey-Voiles of District 5.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Gildrey-Voiles, and I am here to speak in favor-ish of this proposal. I agree there aren't a lot of details. However, during a lot of the debates that we hear about the homeless issue and the unhoused and unsheltered issue in Madison, we hear, well, people need to go somewhere, but they can't go to a park, but it needs to be city property. But the city doesn't own a lot of property that isn't being used. So I'm in favor of more options. I like the fact this proposal does say for short-term or long-term, because we need to think about the housing problem in Madison as a huge conglomerate with lots of different solutions because there's lots of different causes and lots of different people with lots of different needs. So we have short-term and medium-term and long-term solutions. That is great. I think purchasing this property will give us options, and options are things that we desperately need right now. So I am urging for there to be more details forthcoming, but also urging action so we increase our options and stop acting from a deficit and panic situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next registrant is George Angelo of District 17, to be followed by Bob Schaefer.
Hello. Yes,
Oh, George, you've muted yourself again.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. I, registered as opposed. I think the previous speaker made some really good arguments, and it's kind of in line with my position. I think there's a lot of options on the table. I've been following the homeless situation in all these meetings, and I think there have been some tremendous proposals. So I don't think moving forward without a plan on this particular property is a good idea. I think the plan should come first, but I certainly agree that multiple options are appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Bob Schaefer of District 17.
Thank you, Madam. Putting another shelter at 1902 Bartillon Drive is disrespectful of the needs and services required by the homeless men. It's like sticking them away somewhere out of the way. Other negatives to this location are proximity to Metz College, where potential for panhandling and inappropriate behavior to students could occur. The other proximity is Rindle Park Fields, which have had various concerns lately. The location does not give easy access to the services homeless men need. It's like sticking them in a closet. If the objective is moving the homeless out of central Madison, then do it right by building a structure near the needed services that can permanently house them and help them to regain home statuses. We do have an obligation to help our homeless who want help. And that's all.
Thank you. Let's try one more time for Michonne Adams of District 4.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Michonne. I work out at Rindell Park currently with my population, and I just wanted to voice my support for just having options, like Evelyn said, that we can currently help support what is going on and kind of have a lot for people to move to. I currently was more in favor of the men's shelter, so that's what I tried to.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
But yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I just wanted to voice my opinion for support and advocacy on behalf of my clients.
Thank you. We have no other registrants wishing to speak. Are there questions for any of our registrants? Seeing none. Then on item 42, President Abbas, a motion, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Alder Harrington McKinney, did you have a question for registrants? You're muted, Alder.
No, I'm waiting for staff questions.
Okay.
Staff.
So let's get a motion on the table first. President Abbas.
Move motion to adopt.
I believe Vice President Martin is trying to second. Thank you, Vice President Martin. So it's moved and seconded. We'll go to questions for staff. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you. This question is for staff. What makes this property attractive to purchase at this time? And so we've heard a lot of comments, but I'd like to know from staff what makes the purchase of this property attractive for the city to buy.
I think we will see if possibly Mr. Wachter or Mr. O'Keefe wants to speak to that.
Sure, I can start. So city real estate staff actively search for properties along our major transit corridors that meet a handful of criteria that we've talked about in the past, and similar criteria to what we use for land banking, the Affordable Housing Fund. So this particular site is roughly 2 acres. It's zoned in a very flexible zoning district that gives it a lot of possible development options. It's also between 2 of our proposed BRT sites, but even without that, the fact that it's across the street from Madison College and down the block from East Washington Avenue means that it has pretty robust transit service in the general area. Additionally, it is a handful of blocks from grocery stores and other sort of major amenities. So we'll put that all together, and it's a very flexible site for a wide variety of redevelopment options, in this case related to homelessness. And it's also actively listed for sale. So a number of months ago, the owner reached out to the city to ask if we would be interested in buying it. So we've had an ongoing dialogue because we have an interested seller.
And so this is really more leaning toward land banking, because I heard you mention that as well.
So the reason it's sort of on our radar is that it meets the criteria that we would use for land banking, similar criteria that we use for affordable housing, but in this case, we've actively been looking for sites to serve a variety of homelessness needs. But the underlying criteria overlap quite a bit with the other things that I discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Herring-McKinney. Alder Halverson, questions for staff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Was just looking if Director O'Keefe is on, if he would be willing to the best of his ability, share a little clarification on the purpose of this future use of this property.
Alder,
oh, there you are. Go ahead, Jim.
Alder Halverson, you've heard before, we've suggested that this property has a number of different potential uses, and it's one of a number of properties that are being considered for different uses. So the specific direction that we will take, or that we will recommend the council takes, is really going to hinge on other decisions affecting those other uses. But as Matt pointed out, the property clearly has value for any number of short and long-term uses, and we think it makes good sense to acquire the property now and make that ultimate decision about its future use a little bit down the road.
Thank you for that. Just another follow-up question. I know we had this conversation yesterday. I just want to have the conversation for the rest of the council to hear a little bit of what we talked about. So this resolution is looking at acquisition costs, $855,000. We know that there's a burned out building on there that will need to be demolished in the tune of $100,000 to $200,000 to do that. Can you just say where the funds are going to come from for that additional preparation for this site to prepare it for some of our yet to be defined purposes?
So the source of the acquisition of this property is the General Land Acquisition Fund. That's a funding source that is also available for site prep costs. And so to the extent that there are additional site prep costs, we would likely draw from that fund. And I would just add, Alder Halverson, that $100,000 to $200,000 cost to demolish that site is a preliminary estimate. We don't know that it will cost that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Alder Halverson. Alder Carter, questions?
I just have one question to either Matt or Jim. Will this property ever be used for housing first, which I think is really desperately needed?
Alder Carter, it certainly has the potential for that use. And again, the path that the city goes, the path that the council ultimately follows here is going to depend on other decisions that you'll be making about other development opportunities. That's really the best that I can describe it at this point.
I don't have any other questions for staff. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the item? Alder Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the site, first of all, I will say, I want to reiterate this too, because it came up yesterday too about, myself and the district, 17 constituents. We are absolutely 100% behind finding solutions to help individuals experiencing homelessness. We are more than willing to look for additional opportunities on top of what we're already doing as a district, with many of the service providers operating out of our district, providing services for mental health, drug addiction, and substance abuse, as well as housing needs. However, for this particular location, I think that this has a lot of potential for, say, for example, a future use of a potential tiny house village. I think that we could certainly build support around that for this property, for that use. It's the ambiguity of it, I think, is where we're running into some challenges with some of the residents and constituents, as well as myself. This was introduced 2 weeks ago, and there has been very, very little, no time to put this out for public comment and get more feedback, or even build support around this location for future use in individuals experiencing homelessness. So my concern is that we would expect, as part of our process for a developer, that they would have plans as to what they're going to use the property for, what they're going to build. And we would also expect that there would be a neighborhood meeting about the use of that property, so that the neighbors in the area could weigh in on this. And we're clearly not providing that opportunity for the residents around this property. So I would like to move for a referral to the November 2nd council meeting, Madam Mayor.
There's a motion to refer. Is there a second? The motion fails for lack of a second.
Oh, I was saying second.
Right, so it's been moved and seconded to refer to the November 2nd council meeting. Is there further discussion?
And Madam Mayor, if I might just also speak to that referral.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I think it's very important that we do follow process and give an opportunity for the residents in this area to weigh in, have a neighborhood meeting. This will give ample time to do that. I also know that we are concerned about properties, that we do want to move quickly to secure properties for land banking purposes. However, I think the risk at this one is pretty low, considering that it is a burned out property that has been vacant for a long period of time. I think we can spend an extra couple of weeks to give opportunity for residents to weigh in on this property, as well as provide an opportunity to get some clarity from some of these decisions that Director Keefe had mentioned. We are waiting to get more information on, so we can bring clarity to what we're going to use this property for. And again, I think we can certainly build support around, like, for example, a tiny house village. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Alder. President Abbas.
I have a question for the staff regarding this referral.
Go ahead, President Abbas.
Yeah, question for Matt Wachter. So Matt, I'm going to recall my memory. If I am not wrong, back in April Common Council meeting, we referred Zaire Road for the May 4th meeting. And that referral was approved by Common Council on the Zai Road. My question to you from technical standpoint because you guys are inside of the contract, you guys know the contract. If we referral this, either this violate our contract, either there's any big negative impact on the contract between city and that the other party. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think it's Dan Rolfs on the call. So we have a provision that gives us the exclusive right to negotiate. And I don't know that it actually has a date end to it. Is Dan on here? He's sending
I am here.
He is.
Yes. To add on to Matt's comment, there is a clause in the contract that talks about the exclusive right. You'll see that under section 12D that allows the city to have exclusive right to negotiate with the seller for this property. And there is a section in here that allows us to do that, but we need to, the city needs to continue to make progress towards getting approval for that. And we've discussed this clause with the city attorney's office, and as we're still working toward, if the council and the city continue to work towards approval, then this clause is in force. But there is a certain point where if we are no longer diligently pursuing the approval of this agreement, then it's no longer in force. And how that's interpreted, I think I would leave that to the city attorney's office. But that I think is probably the most critical point of this, that it allows us to be the sole party negotiating with the seller and entering into agreements like this. So we put this in place, if you recall, after losing out on the property on Easttown Boulevard.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, I really appreciate that detailed explanation on that clause, and we use the similar clause on a Zai Road when we refer it, because we were still doing business in a good faith.
Yes, the challenge here is that, to your point, we are bound by the requirements of getting council approval for actions. However, we need to make sure that we're sort of pursuing that in good faith. And I see Attorney A.C. Ramakrishna is here, and I would invite him to opine before I say anything that's out of line.
To be honest, I really just wanted to make sure that you knew I was here, so you didn't have to interpret this thing I wrote. But it is correct that as long as we are pursuing the approval, I think that we're okay under the exclusivity. It becomes arguable if obviously it's just being referred and action is never taken on it. I think that with Zaire, the last time around, it was fine when it was first referred. And then I think when it was finally shot down, we had to terminate that right. So I think as long as we are still pursuing our legislative path, we're okay.
So Attorney Krishna, Kevin, not Krishna, my bad, sorry. So the motion we have is to refer it, and that clearly says it will come back to Common Council. So interpretation will be it's still in a good faith. It still follow the clause which you mentioned, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I want to know. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I will also want to speak when it's my turn on comments. I have no further question. Thank you.
Thank you, President Abbas. So I'd encourage you to ring in again, because we have a whole queue of folks wishing to speak. I assume you all wish to address the issue rather than questions for staff, but let's just see. Wave at me if you have a question for staff. Okay, all of you have questions for staff. Alder Bennett, we'll start with you. Questions for staff.
Okay, so yeah, because I got confused if we're doing questions or comments. I have comments as well, so I guess you can come back to me for that part. But question, what information can staff provide that we don't already know now in a month from now?
Alder Bennett, I'm not sure who that's a question for.
I don't know. Is there like any new information that we can find in a month from now that we don't already know?
Well, it might be a question for Mr. Wachter, but about this property, I'm not sure there's any additional information that we're seeking.
Okay, so what?
So we won't know anything more about this site, but City Real Estate is actively pursuing multiple sites for a variety of similar purposes. It's just that this one moved faster, partly because it was a straightforward transaction and an active listing. Other sites that we're looking at for similar purposes just are moving slower.
Sure. So, nothing too much though that we learned about this site. It's pretty much any information that we need to know about this site has been like exhausted in the past, correct?
I believe we've done our standard due diligence, and engineering has been on the site, but I think Dan Rolfs might have more insight.
I just echo your comment, Matt. What we would find out between now and then about this particular site will most likely not change in the next 72 hours, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know that a whole lot will change.
Cool. Thank you. I guess I'll wait for comments.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Alder Curry, questions for staff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess this could be addressed to multiple folks, but I keep hearing about a meeting and on Sunday and community feedback. I think most of us that are familiar with the existing building that is still there know that we're not talking about moving folks into it tomorrow. I wanted to know if any city staff had been reached out to and invited to the meeting on Sunday to engage with residents who are concerned about the resolution.
I'm not aware of any, but perhaps Mr. Wachter or Mr. O'Keefe.
Just speaking for myself, I was not invited to Sunday's meeting.
Thank you. Alder Curry, any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Curry. Alder Figueroa-Cole, questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question for Director O'Keefe. This is easy, yes or no question. When we decide what we're going to do with the site, don't we give the public the opportunity to weigh in at that time?
Yes, Alder, this resolution is merely authorizing the purchase of the property. We're not proposing a use of the property, but when we do, that will be the point in time where we will have an opportunity to discuss with neighborhood residents.
Thank you. So there will be time in the future. Again, appreciate it. I wanted to clarify that we are just purchasing the property and can be used for whatever purposes later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Figueroa-Cole. Alder Foster, questions for staff?
Yeah, it was actually the exact same question, so I'll just leave my hand up for comment. Thank you.
All right. Are there any additional questions for staff on the motion to refer? Okay, so then I think we had President Abbas first for comment, then Alder Bennett, then Alder Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as you all heard the question to the Attorney Office, if we refer this particular proposal to the next meeting, it's still in a good faith that provide a ample time or good opportunity for the order of the district. And we should, as a council, should give that courtesy to the alder to at least have a neighborhood meeting in which he could have a staff member and other members also attend those meetings, and also have an invitation to next door alder, which is me, right across the road, to have a joint neighborhood, which also I could engage the businesses as well. So giving 15 days more time is, as we heard, it's not going to kill the project. It's still going to stay the project as it is. It give a opportunity for alders to engage with the community. So I will encourage you all to give that opportunity to the alder of the district to have that communication with the constituent and having staff members over there, and also, next door alder, myself also could also participate and engage the constituent as well. Thank you.
Thank you, President Abbas. Alder Bennett.
Oh, I'm so sick of Zaya Road and talking about it and talking about this. Like, we've already exhausted this conversation so many times in council. I literally do not understand why we need to keep talking about the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, no, I don't want to refer this. Let's deal with this now. And I believe that we've had tons of community engagement over this topic, with whatever meeting happened on Sunday and meetings that happened prior to this about the Zaya Road location, and even comments that we've been receiving to all alders for this site. So I don't see what more needs to be said about this site if we're just maybe trying to wait longer for a different result to happen.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Alder Foster.
Thank you. I will not be supporting the referral. I appreciate the points that Alder Abbas made, and absolutely do think there should be neighborhood meetings, and I think there will be plenty of opportunity for that. If folks want to organize a meeting following tonight in just a general, what do you all think we should do with this property? You can have that meeting. It would probably make more sense to have a meeting when there's something actually proposed for the use there. And, I think my colleague previously had suggested that a developer would never expect to get approval on a project without having that neighborhood meeting and plans and specs, et cetera. But that's not where we're at. The item in front of us is for purchase of the land. And that is what we're voting on tonight and referring this. We don't need to refer the question of whether we want to buy this land or not. I think we already heard from staff that it meets so many of the needs of our land banking program. Whatever we end up using it for, from my perspective, this is a good purchase. And the question of exactly what we do with it and what form that takes is a later question that will have plenty of opportunity for public input. No developer would put forward a proposal without securing the property first. That's the first step of any project. So that's where we're at tonight. I encourage everyone to vote against referral and just get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Foster. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's why I wanted to hear staff say land banking. And I wish that was the thing that was elevated, because that's what's before us tonight is, as a city, the Economic Development Office and whoever makes those decisions about real estate has determined that this is a property that could be for many uses, and this is land banking. And so my concern is not what's going to be there, because that will be a robust discussion within itself. but the opportunity that we have of purchasing a property that has many uses is something that I can support. And I wish that it had been brought forth as a land banking for which is before us, rather than these other considerations that's causing us to spend so much time in determining what's before us. And what's before us is, do we purchase the building and does it have potential uses? And so I am not going to support the referral. I am supporting the purpose of increasing our opportunity to do land banking.
Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. Alder Curry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will not be voting to support the current, I don't know if it's an amendment or a request to extend it for the same purposes that were already voiced here. I think I wanted to share a perspective as an alder who's getting ready to enter into a neighborhood meeting tomorrow about one of the solutions that's coming out of trying to provide tangible, efficient solutions to the issue that residents in the said district have called on all of us to provide. I think there's no amount of meetings, there's no amount of conversations that will change the narrative about the urgent need for solutions to deal with our neighbors and residents who are unsheltered, as well as those who are experiencing homelessness or at the fringe of it. And it's not responsible to extend periods of time, have more meetings when there were already meetings that had been planned intentionally and staff could have been invited. So I will not be supporting extending this, and I would encourage my colleagues to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Curry. Alder Conklin.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I too want to echo that I will not be supporting this referral. The time is now. We need to take action and get this done. Like it's been stated before, there was just a meeting on Sunday. The whole neighborhood was there. It looked like an excellent turnout. But now for you to call and say that you need another meeting to get more city staff there and the other alders, like that should have been done already. We knew that this was on the agenda. Folks could have had their time to talk about it and ask questions there, but I don't think we need to prolong this any longer. We're not talking about the actual building. We're talking about the land. It's in front of us now. Let's deal with this and move forward with this. So I ask my other colleagues to please do not support this referral. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Conklin. Alder Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say a few things. Number one, I would like someone to send me a list of all the community meetings that has happened regarding Zaire Road and Stoughton Road. Two, being transparent from the beginning would avoid these duplicate conversations that we have. And when we aren't transparent from the beginning, this is what you have. So each of us need to look in the mirror about this. I think that the land banking description that was given tonight really enlightened the purpose of the purchase. Should have been said from the very beginning. What I heard from the very beginning was this can be used for this or this. And I think that going forward, we have a tendency to cancel out each other. And that tendency is going to turn around and cancel out you. And I prefer that we all open our minds and listen to each other and not necessarily cancel someone out. I appreciate Attorney Kevin, Jim, and Matt for giving us that description and clarification tonight. And I hope going forward with this is not the end of all the issues and concerns that we have in the city of Madison. So going forward, let's be transparent on our intentions so that we don't have conversations and accusations over and over and over and over. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one quick comment. So I'm glad that people heard about the meeting on Sunday. It was very difficult to actually try to throw something together, and I'm glad that there was, and some of the residents were able to come out. Some of the feedback that day was they didn't even know this was happening and had stumbled across it. So short notice, less than 2 weeks to try to put something together is extremely difficult, as I'm sure some of you know. And I'm just making the point that, you know, this is more than land banking. This does say specifically setting aside this land for some purpose with individuals experiencing homelessness, which I think we can support. I think I can build the support around that. Like I said, with the example of a long-term tiny house village. So to say that there was ample time to get this done for getting the message out, I think is not correct. And I'm merely asking for additional time to get the individuals, neighbors around this property up to speed. And so I appreciate everybody's comments, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Alder Halverson. If no other alders in the queue wishing to speak, the motion is referral to November 2nd. I anticipate a request for a roll call. So all those in favor of referral, aye. Those opposed to referral, nay. As your name is called, and the clerk will call the roll.
Alder Bennett.
Sorry, this is for the referral, so no.
The motion is referral. So if you favor referral, aye. If you're opposed to referral, nay.
No.
No. Carter.
Come back to me.
Okay. Conklin.
No.
No. Curry.
No.
No. Evers.
No.
No. Figueroa Cole.
No.
No. Foster.
No.
No. Furman.
No.
No. Halverson.
Aye.
Aye. Harrington McKinney.
No.
No. Heck.
No.
No. Lemmer.
No.
No. Martin.
No.
No. Miadze.
No.
No. Verveer.
No.
No. Vitiver.
No.
No. Wahelia.
No.
No. Abbas.
Aye.
Aye. Alburis.
No.
No. Benford.
No.
No. And Alder Carter.
No.
No. That's 2 ayes and 18 noes.
Thank you. With 18 noes, the motion to refer fails. We'll back to the main motion, which is to adopt. Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded to adopt. Is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor? Alder Halverson?
I will not be supporting this resolution.
Alder Halverson will be recorded as a no vote. Is there any objection to recording a 19-1 vote on this item? Seeing no objection, we'll record that vote on item 42. And we will move on to item 45, which is Legistar 67410, increasing staff for public health Madison and Dane County to support ongoing COVID-19 response and recovery. On item 45, we have one registrant wishing to speak, Steve Verberg of District 16.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I'm speaking tonight in support of the proposal to use federal funds to bolster our local public health agency's pandemic response. I would also like to suggest that Public Health Madison-Dane County needs additional local funding, not for direct response to the pandemic necessarily, but so that the agency can be staffed sufficiently to enforce laws aimed at reducing industrial, military, and government pollution that contributes to the toll in Madison of cancers and other serious diseases linked to water pollution. Hope the council members and the mayor remember that it was on their watch that our beautiful Lake Monona was listed as impaired because its waters and fishery have become so badly polluted with the so-called forever chemicals, the group of highly fluorinated synthetic compounds known by the acronym PFAS. Under Madison ordinances, the Public Health Department has authority to examine the many pollutants that flow through public storm sewers into Lake Monona and into that murky dead zone that we call Starkweather Creek. Local public health agency also has authority to track pollutants to their sources and enforce laws intended to protect the public from these pollutants. If you're concerned about the pandemic, consider that exposure to PFAS has been linked to increased risk of death and disability from COVID-19. PFAS in all of our drinking water wells, although not at levels that exceed the Trump administration's laughably high advisory limit. It's often said wrongly that we can rely on the DNR to protect us from water pollution. It's just not true. State environmental laws and the DNR were eviscerated during the Walker years. And the business lobby is currently holding hostage the health-based PFAS standards that have been proposed by Department of Health Services. So why doesn't our public health department find the sources of the pollutants like PFAS that are flowing through public storm sewers into our lakes? Why not enforce the laws that are on the books to protect public health? If any of you are interested in learning more about the issue, I can point you to readily available background information on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our registrant? Alder Harrington McKinney, is that a question for our registrant?
No, it is not.
Thank you, Alder. Seeing no questions for the registrant, then on item 45, President Abbas, a motion, please.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt item 45. Are there questions for staff, Alder Harrington McKinney?
Madam Mayor, just catch me up because 44 and 45 are similar. Do we have to go back and I should have asked this question earlier because both of them really involve the same comment. So have we resolved 44 or we have to go back to do that?
No, Alder, we've already adopted 44.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Harrington McKinney. So seeing no questions for staff, is there any discussion on item 45? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor of item 45? Seeing no objection, we'll record that unanimous vote on item 45. And we will move on to item 47, which is Legistar 67422, authorizing a purchase and sale agreement between the City of Madison and BIP Enterprises for the purchase of 2002 Zaire Road. On item 47, we have registrants wishing to speak, starting with Benjamin Mencius of District 17, to be followed by Jake Illing.
I see you're on the phone. *6 to unmute. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me this evening. Yes, I think lack of public knowledge for this property is, I know it's been going on, but no flyers, no newspaper. I mean, I know it's been talked about. I think the lack of knowing what's for sure. I mean, even my neighbors around me didn't know about this, and we're like down the road. So that was one of my issues. I mean, I'm in support of helping the homeless, and there's no doubt about it. They need help. We definitely need to help these ones. I think further away from downtown where their services are is an issue that I see this being a problem more. It's like we're pushing them farther away. But I think clarity too on the contract. It says temporary and other mixed housing on this agenda. I just don't understand if it's temporary I just don't understand why. I guess, I mean, if we want to just collect property, which I know we're getting funding from this to do this, you know, for homeless, I think if that's needed to do this. So legally, I just don't want to see another. I don't even know why this is on the board again. Didn't pass last time, and then, but I understand why it's still on here. I think people are misconceived on this whole idea. So public knowledge is a big thing, clarity. So it just kind of frustrates not seeing this more publicly known. So it seems to be more of a dictatorship pushing this out. That's all. That's my comment.
Thank you. Our next tradition is Jake Illing of District 17 to be followed by Shari Patzer.
May have no Jake unless Shari's here.
Then Shari Patzer of District 17 to be followed by Mara Aish. Shari, you look unmuted on our end, but we can't hear you if you're speaking. You may need to adjust your audio settings. Yep, we see you when you're unmuted on our end. But if you're speaking, we can't hear you. All right, might want to try leaving and coming back in again. We will come back to you, but we're going to go on to Mara Aish of District 10 to be followed by Michonne Adams.
Thank you. I was very surprised to see this back on the agenda for the Common Council. I'm not sure why it's back and why it's back without not much notice or fanfare. And I'm not exactly sure what temporary means if we're going to own the property. I went out to look at this property again today, and it's right in the middle of Easttown Mall. Malls are not dying, they are reinventing themselves. Heck, even Amazon is opening up big box stores for their items. Madison seems hell-bent on destroying Easttown and Westtown malls, replacing them. I don't think that's in our best interest. I've seen other times that things have been on agendas and voted down, and they come back exactly the same a little while later in an attempt to pass without any change to the proposal. I just don't think that that's very fair to all of the people that put so much effort into communicating their position the first time around. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next tradition is Michonne Adams of District 4 to be followed by Evelyn Gildry-Voiles.
Hi. So my name is Michonne. Michonne Adams. I am the lead housing and healthcare coordinator out at Rindell Park currently. And I guess I'm concerned with what is the essential outcome of for my population and our fellow community residents if we don't come to pass a location for the shelter. And I guess I failed to see what the research is on the causation of homelessness and a decline in the current economy of what Easttown Mall. So I don't have the research in front of me. I would be interested in looking into that, but I guess my question is, what is the outcome for the people that we serve and the people that are our neighbors and residents? What if we don't pass this shelter? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next tradition is Evelyn Gildry-Voiles of District 5 to be followed by Linda Roth.
Hello, thank you. I would like to reiterate the needs for options. The city cut themselves off from a great option of having a permanent wraparound 24-hour men's shelter at this property, that would have solved a lot of the reasons why people don't use shelters, because it would have ended the need for people to leave in the morning and come back before a time at night. Therefore, if it was 24 hours that opened, that would have, and staffed and have wraparound care, that would have been a great opportunity. That opportunity was lost. We are now looking at possibly losing an opportunity to have even a temporary shelter for homeless men. We cannot lose another opportunity. We cannot keep on having our options shortened and shortened because of fear of people who do not have houses. We need to seize these opportunities so there are options and choices for all Madisonians, because even if they don't have houses or apartments, they are still Madisonians and residents of the city and this county, and we have to have compassion and options. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Linda Roth of District 17, to be followed by George Angelo. Do we have Linda?
Yep, Linda, you see a prompt to unmute.
Okay, am I on?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I oppose the city's purchase of the entire property. Developers that could save the businesses in this area and provide jobs for people will not come there, because a big box with 100 or more homeless that are there just for the night and then let out during the day to wander the city and sit in the park is not a winning situation for anybody, the homeless or the business people. Jobs will be lost. Now, the gardeners, they're not going to come back next year because they've had harassment and inappropriate behavior. Many, many families are not going to have food on their table. Many families that work to provide it themselves and do the work. Now, that is a definite con to why this shouldn't be there. I went camping in Indiana and met a couple that were going cross country. They said to me, you know, we stopped in Madison. I heard it was a great city. And they said, we were on the east side and we were going to stay overnight at a Walmart. And we drove around the east side. They said there was homeless people, there were sketchy people, and people came up to them asking for money. And they said, we went on to Lake Mills. Now, as you know, the entrance into the East Town District brings lots of visitors. And this is what they're going to see. So we're going to be discouraging people from coming in this way. And it's not fair to the homeless. It's not fair to the citizens in this area. You know, I used to tell people that I felt safe in any part of Madison, and I've been here 40 years. And now I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood. You know, and it's very sad. I know there's a lot of good people. All of you are good people. And I really give you credit for the hard decisions. But sometimes redirecting and a change of plans makes a bad thing into a good thing. It's not a bad thing to change plans and have a view opened up in front of you. But I hate to see the East Town District really become a district nobody wants to go to. And I think it's very heavy-sided that 3/4 of Madison has all new developments and positive things going on and fun things going on, and District 17 has nothing. And I see people wandering the streets. I see people, it's sad. It's hard to see. And I have to come out Portage Road whenever I leave my area and go past the park every day. But thank you for what you're trying to do. But please respect the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is George Angelo of District 17, to be followed by Bob Schaefer.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I've been following this along. We talked about the property on the other side of the street. Every voice that I've heard in the previous arguments, when it was shut down, I followed up with those people and found out that most of those people were engaged in helping the homeless community, had 10 years of service, years and years of involvement, activity. They really want what's best for the homeless community. And I think the opposition really stems around having just a building with no community really around it, just commercial buildings. And I think also all the awareness that came around it has really promoted all of the volunteer organizations that we can all contribute to. Some of the passionate arguments about we have to do something and we're out of time and we're kicking it down the road. I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the fact that there will be volunteer. No matter how much city money or federal money comes in, really the way that this is going to work is caring individuals volunteering their time, efforts, and making access for people with all stages of hardship, substance abuse, mental challenges, things like that. Having one large area in that building, which is the hope, even if it is 24 hours, even if it is full service, it really, we know the homeless community, and there's a lot of people who take advantage of those people. You bring them all together and they're targets. And that's been proven over the last couple of years. So I really think that, there's a lot of hearts in the right places on both sides of this argument. But I think, the reason that it did not pass in a previous effort is because there was enough good arguments about the other options, and there seemed to be plenty of options. It just was time, pursuit, and good planning and good execution. So I applaud everyone, volunteers especially, and I think the awareness is definitely up. Certainly, I'm motivated to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Bob Schaefer of District 17, to be followed by Ben Mencias.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Purchasing the Saver site was already voted down. The only reason to consider it again is to begin construction for the public market, built on First Street location. Then the Saver site is not looked at as a long-term solution, nor is it respectful to keep shoveling our homeless around. These men need easy access to the services more readily available from the First Street location. There is no indication that the homeless men will benefit more by moving them out of First Street to the Saver site. The current location successfully serves as a homeless men's shelter, in part due to its easy access and proximity to downtown needed services. There is no logical assumption that the public market is likely to succeed. Building a public market at the First Street location has been an object for years. The concept of having a location to house opportunities for a variety of sellers to market their products in a climatized year-round environment is a great concept. Now, why is it a bad location for a public market? Madison has a long history with caring for our homeless community. Many of the services and access to food were readily available downtown along State Street. Over time, State Street became less desirable as a place to shop due to being approached by panhandlers and exposure to other unpleasant things. What measures will be taken to prevent the public market built at First Street location from experiencing similar situations? Its proximity to downtown, controlled climate hours of operation, resources to food, and opportunities for panhandling are likely to attract homeless people. If that should happen, how will it affect the continued success or attract vendors and people from outlying communities? The risk of building this at the proposed location seems to have more negatives than positives. Please consider the long-term investment. Another location out near the interstate or American Center may be more successful location for building the public market.
Thank you. Our next registrant is Ben Mencius of District 17. And then we'll go back and see if we have either Jake Illing or Sherry Patzer.
Mayor, I believe Ben was the first person to speak on this item.
Oh, you're correct.
Benjamin.
Thank you.
We had David Prochnow as a late, well, he registered at 6:30, but I don't see him in the list anymore either. So.
What about Jake Illing or Sherry Patzer?
Sherry, we can begin. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties I had earlier. I would like to thank Alder Carter for bringing forward transparency. I think there's been a lot of discussions on all sides, and we really haven't listened to each other, and we haven't been transparent. There's been just a lack of information, I think, that has fostered some challenges, and I want to thank her for bringing that to the attention, and hopefully moving forward, the city will consider that. This was rejected previously, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I'd also like to thank Alder Halverson for rapidly putting a meeting together on Sunday. We had a very diverse group of individuals there. We had some great ideas brought forward, and that is where the community involvement really takes off. It's also my understanding that there is additional information coming in on other sites for potentially a 24/7 shelter. I implore you to please wait. Let's make data-driven decisions. This is too important to just start throwing things and seeing what sticks. We really need to make sure that we are taking care of these individuals. Just to let people know, we did have a few individuals from Rydell Park come to our meeting. So that was a great experience. So please, let's just wait a little bit longer for a positive solution. Make sure we are doing what is needed for these people. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for overcoming your technical difficulties. I believe we have no other registrants that are wishing to speak. Are there questions for any of the folks that did speak? Seeing none, President Abbas, let's get a motion on item 47, please.
Move motion to adopt.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt. We'll start with questions for staff. Are there any? Alder Harrington McKinney.
Yes, I have a question for Jim, please.
Go ahead.
Jim, could you describe the videotape that was provided by Catholic Charities of what a true purpose-built shelter is?
Yes, Alder McKinney, the link that I sent you was sort of a video tour of a facility that several of us have visited in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. It's a full service shelter for actually for men and women. And that video just describes some of the supportive services that are available on site. We've talked about it frequently, Alder Harrington McKinney, as you know, and we sort of emulate it as the gold standard for the kind of facility that we would like to see, one that provides more than just overnight accommodations for, in this case, for men who need it, but also facilitate the provision of services on site to better enable the users of the shelter and its temporary users of the shelter to overcome whatever whatever it is that's keeping them from stable housing. And so that videotape was a brief, but I think a fairly descriptive tour of the kinds of services and the kinds of activities that are provided for at that higher ground facility. I don't recall if it was the Minneapolis or the St. Paul, but there's one in each of those communities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I had requested that a tour be provided, and because of COVID, we could not go there. But Catholic Charities did provide that brief video of what a purpose-built shelter looks like. And I so apologize that I did not prepare to show that, because once you look at what the possibilities are, and Jim, was that the impetus for your team or whoever went to, it was Minneapolis, St. Paul area. So when you saw that purpose-built shelter, how did you come back to Madison, and what was your impression of a purpose-built shelter?
Well, Alderman McKinney, our visits, and there were at least two of them that I participated in, I would say that we came back from those visits inspired by what shelter facilities in this city could be. This was pre-pandemic. We were, I think, as you know, we were even at that time recognizing the deficiencies of the physical, the shelter facilities in this community, and committed to replacing them and upgrading them. And we just took away from our visits to the facilities, one in Minneapolis and the other in St. Paul, sort of a sense of what can be. So the kinds of services I think that are available and that we're very interested in pursuing include everything from basic case management services to more specific either on-site support or facilitation in connecting to behavioral health services, to employment services, to assistance with housing search. Those kinds of activities are all readily available on site. And again, they're there to help each and every person that uses that shelter, who has different needs and different challenges and different barriers to permanent housing, help them overcome those challenges and those barriers to find and secure stable housing.
And Jim, my final question is that on your visits, did you have a sense of community developing and being built? And even for someone who is homeless, was there a sense of community within what you toured?
So we toured the facility during the daytime hours when many of the users of the shelter were away, many of them working. But I think the sense of community, Alder, came from this facility being, again, more than a shelter, even more than a full service shelter, because it also included what was referred to as pay to stay beds. So very short-term housing, not shelter, but housing accommodations. And then also part of this facility was permanent supported housing. And so there certainly was community in that property, on those properties. There were people at different stages of their journey through securing housing. We saw a good part of it, but not all of it. But you know, there was we were struck by the sense of commitment to the populations that were being served, and really the humaneness of that facility and the dignity within which people were being served. And again, we kind of view it as the gold standard and something that we want to try to come as close to as we can here.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Alder Harrington McKinney, President Abbas.
Thank you. I have a question for Matt Wachter.
Go ahead.
So Matt, this particular Zai Road site was, as a temporarily used, was also being discussed at Finance Committee in a closed session. And during the Finance Committee, there was A, B, C, D sites were discussed. And I know between A, B, C, and D, three of them, let's say, for sake of argument, B, C, D, we already know where we are. One side, A, is still, you guys are very close to figure it out. So I'm, for sake of people who are listening, especially attendees, I'm really curious if you could provide where we are with the permanent men's shelter site in the process and how other B, C, and D sites play a role in this whole situation, beside the Zai Road, because that was part of temporarily use. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. So two of the sites, we're in the middle of due diligence, just trying to make sure that there is a deal that could be done, be it price or other factors. We had a meeting as staff even just today to go over information that is just coming in and looking to schedule a meeting with other property owners. So I can't guarantee you exactly when they'll happen, but I'll say that we're very actively in discussions with a couple of people and hope to make progress in the next couple of weeks on those. And I think to your sort of bigger question, where does this fit into the permanent shelter discussion? So assuming that the public market stays on track and is moving ahead, that is working through its financing. And so it can continue to be a temporary shelter, through this winter and into next year. But at some time next year, presumably we would have to start construction on the public market. And so it doesn't seem possible that we would have a permanent shelter purchased, renovated by the time that we would have to be out of that building to make the public market go forward. So what's being proposed tonight with this is to make sure we have an option so that if we have to be out of First Street, we have another temporary facility to move into, knowing that a permanent shelter, no matter which of the options we look at, just because the time that it takes to get through a closing, do design, public works bidding, and construction, that's at least a couple year window in between there that we would have a place to move to as a temporary shelter. Now, it's possible that the public market doesn't move forward on that timeline and you could stay in First Street sooner. It's possible that some of the other sites that we're looking at also could be potentially used as a temporary shelter. But I think the most likely scenario is that we would need to be out of First Street for some amount of time before the permanent shelter is ready. So Zai Road offers an opportunity to fill that need to make sure that we're not scrambling to find a temporary shelter sometime next year. Additionally, the Greater Easttown Plan calls for this general area to be a redevelopment area. It will be close to BRT, it's close to amenities, jobs, all of that, which makes it a really attractive redevelopment site. And so the resolution also calls for it to be that, to be a redevelopment site whenever we're done using this as a temporary shelter. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I have a follow-up question. So with the permanent site, how far we are? I know last time when you came to finance, you said site A, B, C, D. We are going to come back. I know one of the site we already make a decision on it, but there are other 3 sites. Like, what does the timeline look like?
So it's a hard question to answer with certainty, but I would anticipate that within the next few weeks, we will be able to take some options off the table or sort of know that we're in a place where we can bring it forward to have that discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Abbas. Alder Wahelehe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is for Tim or Matt. So on some of the questions I had, I think you answered based on the public market. The timeline for the public market, we don't have in a set time that they can be able to start construction unless the population, the homeless population, is being kicked out, correct?
So Matt Mikolajewski's on the call. He can talk a little bit more about that and how some of the financing related to it does have some timelines.
Mayor, would you like me to follow up? Yes, Alder. So right now we are working with the Federal Economic Development Administration on securing federal funding for the public market project. And if we are successful, the EDA is going to have a requirement that we do start construction of the public market sooner rather than later. So we are most likely going to need to be under construction around this time next year of the public market project. So therefore, yes, if we finalize funding for the public market and we proceed, then we'll need to be under construction in fall of next year.
So as a follow-up, if you don't find a location, temporary location for the homeless, what other alternative do you have? Or are there any other alternative?
Well, we don't have an alternative for the public market. All of the construction documents, the financing, everything centers on that First and Johnson location. So if the public market is going to be built, it needs to be built at that site.
And is there a reason that they have to be built in that location?
Yes, there's a couple of reasons. One is the city's commitment of funding is TID 36 dollars, so the project has to be located in TID 36. The EDA funding that we're currently working on is entirely focused on the site. It's site specific. We've also spent close to $1 million on business planning and architectural work and the preparation of construction docs for the public market. And, you know, I don't believe it is necessarily good use of dollars to have to replicate that somewhere else, because the construction docs, the architecture, the business plan can't be replicated at another facility. It would need to be recreated from the beginning.
Thank you. And one final question. At the Finance Committee, the closed session, 5 or 6 other property were identified, and none of those properties could become candidate for the public market?
Well, the city several years ago went through a process of looking for a site for the public market, and we, cast a wide net, and we got to a point where we narrowed it down to 3 possible locations, and then this location, generally First and East Wash, was the site that was selected by the council, and then we moved forward, and we have been doing our work and our due diligence ever since that time. So that's several years worth of work and hundreds of thousands of dollars that have gone into getting from that point of selecting the site
to being able to start construction. So again, I don't think that it would make any sense to continue with the public market project if it were not to be located at this site.
Okay. And one final question. I know I said final one, but this is my final one. The East Side economy is really falling, and in order to revitalize the economic of the East Side, wouldn't it make sense to have public market close to there so that there are businesses and the economy of East Side also can be, built based on this? So is there any reason why the Zaya Road could not be candidate for the public market?
Yes, there are a number of reasons. First, again, my recommendation would be to not move forward with the public market if we were to move off of the First Street site. I just don't think that it makes fiscal sense to recreate all the work once again. But one of the reasons that the First and East Washington site was selected, actually, there were a number of key reasons that site was selected. One, it was more centrally located, making the market available to the broader Madison community. If it were located over near East Town Mall, that's far in one direction to the far east side. The First and East Washington site had great transit access and great access to the bike infrastructure, and as well as pedestrian access. So there was a lot of ability to walk and bike and bus to the public market, where we know that some of those facilities are sort of less in number on the far east side. There was also the demographics of the area, kind of the trade area within, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes of the First and Johnson site actually served a very diverse population, especially from an economic standpoint. You have a fairly large number of low to moderate income individuals that live within 10 to 15 minutes of that site. And that would have provided a great amenity to that community. And obviously, there's also certainly mid and higher income individuals as well. And it provided great access via car as well. There's about 50,000 cars that traverse East Washington Avenue every day. And key to the success of the market is having customers for the vendors that are located there. And so from a car standpoint, it had great car traffic as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Are there further questions for staff? Alder Harrington McKinney.
I have a question. And when you were looking at the current location on First Street as being the best site for the public market, and you were doing the research, was there an investigation of the West Side market in Cleveland? Was that one of the models that you looked at?
Alder, that's a great question. I had the great privilege of being able to attend a public market conference in Cleveland and visit the West Side market, which is sort of one of the gold standards of a public market. It's a beautiful 100-year-old building. And yes, that is certainly, what we would desire. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to achieve 1920s beautiful architecture. But the intent of the diverse offerings of individuals that represent all different backgrounds in the Cleveland community and the different food entrepreneurship that's been able to spur out of those businesses certainly is one of the models that we looked at.
And where was the that market located?
That market is not in the heart of downtown, but it is kind of adjacent to sort of the downtown area. So not unlike the First Street location. It is off of a subway line. So it's, right on their main public transportation system. it's in a very dense urban neighborhood, but not in the heart of downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Miate, questions for staff?
Yes, this is probably for Jim O'Keefe. I guess the first question is ask Jim if he's been in the First Street location.
Have I been in it? Yes, I have.
Okay, so I just had a couple questions. When I went in there and I visited, I saw, how they had a detox, how they had a place for PSD, place for counseling, and how huge it was. How much square footage is that place, would you say?
Ooh, I don't know that off the top of my head. Brian Cooper from City Engineering is here. He may. Sorry, I don't. It's big.
Okay. So yeah, can you get that? If he could answer that for me, then I have a follow-up question.
Brian?
Yes, Alder, it's about 45,000 square feet, approximately.
Okay.
But the ground, it has a mezzanine, so the ground floor is like roughly in the 38,000 square foot range.
All right, so can you compare that to the Zaire location? Is that...
Yeah, the Zaire location is about right around 30,000 square feet.
Okay, so my question, Jim.
I'm sorry, it's only on one floor, Zaire Road.
Yeah. It's all right. So my question, Jim, how many people do you think, with all the amenities that you see that the First Street location has, how many people do you think that the Zaire location can accommodate? And how many do you think that the First Street accommodates?
So we have scaled both of those properties to accommodate something in the neighborhood of 200 men. We left a facility in the basement of Grace Episcopal Church that relied on bunk beds and converted to a single bed arrangement. So even as we set First Street up and would anticipate setting up the Zaire Road location to accommodate about 200 men, we understand that with bunk beds we could certainly expand that capacity. Now we haven't needed the full capacity yet at First Street, and with any luck we won't. But there is ample space to expand the capacity to serve either at First Street or at Zaire Road. But we're anticipating, Alder, something that would comfortably serve about 200 men.
And with all the same amenities that the First Street has?
I think, yes, we would be largely replicating that layout and the amenities that are at First Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. I have no further hands for questions for staff. It has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Alder Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to say that this resolution doesn't make any sense to me. We did address this earlier this year. There's many reasons as to why this location is not the right location. The only thing I see different from the last resolution that was failed to this resolution is now we're saying it's temporary, which honestly, a lot of feedback from the constituents and myself, very concerned that it's not going to be temporary. And my concern with that is this is a 50-year decision, and this is very short-sighted to place it in this location. We're within weeks, potentially, of, as we heard tonight, of choosing a permanent site that actually some of them may even have buildings that could be transitioned into temporary shelters while the permanent one is built out. There's this false sense of urgency, I think, around this location. Why are we talking about this in October if this was an urgent decision we needed to make when it could have been addressed in July after the 60 days passed from the first failure of the resolution. So I'm just a little confused as to why we're doing this again. And as we heard in some of the testimony, there's constituents that are confused. It's been 2 weeks to the day that this was announced. Again, trying to get the message out that this is now back up again. Yeah, it's just that continuing trend of we're not giving opportunity for feedback from the public. They feel like the residents in the district don't feel like their voices are being ignored. And there is a reality to the financial side. I'm in finance, and we absolutely are going to get there with a purpose-built full service men's shelter. We're going to get there. I know we're going to make that happen. This council has absolute resolve to do that. It's a matter of picking the location that's going to get us there. But there's a financial aspect to this, and there are 3 economic engines in the city that have been identified that have great potential, and it's the downtown area, Westtown Mall area, and Easttown Mall area. And if we look at this as an economic engine for the city, when we face a $50 million deficit, structural deficit, and the challenges that we face in coming out of a pandemic, this location is ready to develop. And we have developers, as we've heard, that are ready to develop here. And why would we risk that development that could bring in and start a really great development boom on this part of town for a temporary solution? It makes no sense to me. And I don't buy into we need to do the cheapest and the fastest option when it comes to siting our men's shelter. I don't think that's doing anybody any favors. And this makes no sense to me. So I will not be supporting this resolution.
Thank you, Alder Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly comment. I do support moving forward with this purchase. A number of members of the public tonight also shared the sense of kind of confusion or surprise, and a lot of people, including my colleague, referenced how this was already rejected, so what are we doing talking about it again? I just wanted to real briefly try and clarify for everyone. There was an item that was introduced in February that we finally voted on in May, and that item was to amend our adopted capital budget in order to receive money from Dane County, in order to purchase this location and build a permanent purpose-built men's shelter. 14 out of 20 of us voted yes to that action. 5 voted no. But because that was a budget amendment, we have a very high standard and require 15 out of 20 votes. So that did not pass, it failed, and you can call it getting shot down. 14 out of 20 of us said yes at that time to that proposal. What's in front of us tonight is purchase of the same property, not amending the budget. This requires 11 votes, and explicitly for the purpose of a temporary men's shelter. It's a completely different item, requires a different vote, and I don't understand what's cloudy about it. And I think it's really undermines democracy to push this myth that there's a lack of transparency. If any members of the public need support in understanding it, reach out to city staff. All of the details are in Legistar, which is a system that holds all of our information. Everything is there very clearly, very transparently. What we're voting on tonight is to purchase this property so that it's available as a potential site for a temporary shelter while we continue to pursue other locations for a permanent shelter. I support this. I hope that at least the other 13 alders that voted in favor of the permanent version several months ago are in support tonight. And I'd love it if even more alders joined in so that we can move forward with providing the services that we need to provide for those in our community that are currently unsheltered. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am not confused. It is very clear to me that transparency is lacking. I was one of the 5 alders that voted against purchasing Zire Road. And the fact that Zire Road is back before us as a, quote, temporary shelter says to me that there is no transparency. And I want to be very clear with that. And I have no fear. I do have compassion. I have been homeless. I have had to sleep in my car. In my mind is a vision of a purpose-built shelter. A shelter that is still in my vision, one that provides the opportunity for those previously unsheltered, unhoused to thrive. My vision goes beyond a housing warehouse. And that's what I see Zire Road is. I see much more. Why do we accept less when it comes to some people through no fault of their own find themselves homeless? When I talk with providers, they told me the reason, and I talked with providers and I asked them, why did you approve of the purchase of Zire Road? And their response was, because we did not think that there were any other options, and we had to have a provision for men of a shelter. The reason that I asked Jim to share his team's visit to St. Paul, because it was more than an overnight accommodation. He said it was inspiring. He said that there was a sense of community. There was dignity. There was humanity. And when I see Zire Road, it does not inspire me. It does not seem to be a place with integrity. And it does not seem a place where men can thrive. And if it means that we find a place that does have this accountability, and it seems as though the city has sites that will fit that, I am still going to stand, even if I'm the only one standing, is that I want a location where individuals who choose not to be homeless, to move out of that situation, can thrive. We are warehousing people. We are not encouraging people to thrive. That is what I see Zire Road to be. So I'm very clear that there is no transparency. And this is back before us because we turned it down. And it is another opportunity to purchase that building. And I stand on it. I am not going to vote for it because it is not a purpose-built shelter. Call it a shelter for homeless men. Name it that. But erase a purpose-built shelter because it is not that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Bennett.
Honestly, I already kind of spoke to this in the last one because a girl is confused. But I don't know. It's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating that every time we have something remotely dealing or pertaining to people that are experiencing homelessness, are unsheltered folks in Madison, we have to experience over and over again an onslaught of like just NIMBY and anti-homeless arguments from all over this spectrum. And this is not me accusing any one person of that. However, when we're dealing with these issues, I think it's very important for us to check our privilege in being able to have these conversations and make these decisions while we're all sitting in the comfort of our own homes, in the comfort of our own desk or computer or whatever, which are simply not things that people that are unsheltered have the luxury of. And furthermore, this is an urgent issue. It was an urgent issue in February. It was an urgent issue in May. And it's still an urgent issue in October because Zaya Road was voted down back in May because it was a supermajority vote, and this is not. So I don't understand where confusion is or where it's coming from. And honestly, if we feel as though there's a lack of community input, we've had so much input on this location in regards to it being a shelter already. And furthermore, if we want more community input, then maybe next time when we have community meetings, we should invite staff and people and service providers, people experiencing houselessness, and other alders so that we can hear from community input, or we can refer them to come to Common Council, as many people have, to give public comment. So I'm not trying to refute or say whatever arguments that people have or whatever sentiments are invalid. There is fear that comes with change, and there is fear around the unsheltered community, and it's the duty of all of us alders to go to our constituents and relay to them what the experiences is and why it's a priority and why it's an urgent issue, instead of promoting the false sense of fear around this community, the false sense that suddenly the neighborhood's going to crap and housing prices are going to fall and all this other stuff, which is simply not a proven fact by evidence and studies that have been done around this issue. So I don't know what the issue. Actually, I do know what the issue is, but it's frustrating all around to have to go through this over and over again every time we talk about this issue. So.
Thank you, Alder. President Abbas.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to explain what the issue is in my own way. And I really appreciate listening to my colleagues as well. Yes, I was one of the members who voted against Zaya Road back in May. And I'm sure community is well aware of that. Just to give a recap, so when temporary shelter came to Warner Park, we have a neighborhood meeting. I did not oppose it. We welcome it along with Alder Campbell. Then it moved to First Street. I did not oppose it, welcome it, create consensus, have neighborhood meeting. Alder Rommel at that point, now Alder Benfer represent that district, and Alder Hack also attended that meeting because that's neighboring district, and created consensus and explained the process, how it's going to work, because there was a lot of concerns about public market and perhaps public market will be killed. So tiny home project is in District 12. It came, this council approved it, and I was very supportive of that and conducted a neighborhood meeting. However, when the Zaya Road came, my frustration is the narrative was given in the greater Madison community. That's the only side, that is it. And I understand your sentiment, council sentiment, you mean council sentiment. I also understand the sentiment of community housing advocate. It's been over 30 years. It's overdue. And I completely get that. And when something like that, which is perhaps not the ideal, but that's the only thing in front of you, perhaps we should all vote for it. But matter of fact is, I knew it. There are more options. And I push for it, for a better solution. And I'm going to talk about my vote, myself, not about others. And at that point, I also mentioned about Pennsylvania Avenue, like in my backyard, not like NIMBY, not in my backyard. I said, bring in my backyard. There's all the other project, which I supported. Could be great to have this community close to transit system, close to amenities, and close to downtown where this community want to live. And there were also further other sites also available. In all full disclosure, there was other site too, but the narrative was given, long story short. In May 4th, it was turned down. Within a 2 month, this common council, especially alders who sit on finance and other alders who are actively involved, who doesn't sit on finance, but still very engaged with this topic. They talked to the staff, 4 sites came up and available. We heard from Matt Wachter, they were working with the Bartillon site for a while. That site we just purchased, and I voted for it in favor because it is next to the bus stop. It is close to highway. It's close to amenities. It is close to BRT. Zaire Road, the reason I pushed it back and voted against because I know there is a light after tunnel. They are a better option. And if we put pressure on our city staff or policymaker, we perhaps get a better location. The intent was not to be anti-homeless, which I was being accused publicly on Facebook as well as via email. And I understand things came through emotions. Everybody hold their own opinion, and that's okay. My intent was not to be anti. My intent was as a policymaker, think about it. What else options are better while we have council, we have the mayor, we have the funding. All are check boxes. While we have all those things, why not look for a better option? And my frustration here is we got in front of finance committee all those scenario A, B, C, D with Zaire Road, perhaps could be used as temporarily if we pick A, B, C, whatever. All of us, 7 of us on finance committee or 6 of us, all of us was okay with any of those scenarios. That was my read from the committee. I can't really go in more details because of closed session. And while we are a few weeks away to bring a permanent shelter site in front of us, we again press the trigger. And I get that. It's emotional. We want solution. But if we could wait 2 more weeks and have a better picture from policy standpoint, I'm totally talking about policy, have a better picture in front of the community. Hey, this is site number A, either it's Pennsylvania Avenue or Bartillon or whatever the site is, you name it. That the route to this particular site goes through Zaire Road because it will take 3 years. And staff mentioned it will take 2 years, 3 years to create permanent shelter, or perhaps Pennsylvania Avenue could be used for temporarily while we develop a permanent shelter there. So without having a permanent site in front of us, my wish list was both come together. Permanent site, temporary site, so the community is clear about what vision is, what our mission is, what we want to achieve. My biggest fear here is this particular site might end up as permanent shelter, probably. And the staff who's working really hard, I really, really appreciate them. But the time will come, they were like, well, that we have other key issue on our hand. Temporary shelter is working fine, and Zaire Road, it's fulfilling what it's supposed to do. And perhaps that motivation is not there. And perhaps I'm wrong. I'm just sharing some of my fear and concerns. My concern is perhaps this particular council decide we already spent 10 million on Zaire Road. We don't want to spend 10 more million on another location. Let's leave it there. I know it's not 15 vote. It's 11 vote. It will pass. I will still not vote for it because my concerns remain the same. And I do believe there are better options. I do believe this particular site is not connected. But what I want to say here is it will pass tonight. And I really hope in future, beside this shelter, where location goes, we should all work collaboratively and try to figure it out how we have to run to make sure it is successful and people come to Zaire Road location. And it is being a successful location rather than we spend millions and millions of dollars. And after millions of dollars, we figure it out, people still want to live close to downtown. That will be something time will only tell where we stand. And I also really, I really hope our city policymaker would wait a couple of more weeks and get the whole situation in front of us. So I just want to give my point of opinion. No disrespect to any of you. I know everybody have passion and compassion about it, and it's understandable. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Abbas. Alder Curry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the point of, I appreciate Alder Harrington McKinney's comment about a purpose-built shelter. So as a provider that has worked within homeless services for 6 years, I just want a similar comment that I made towards the Bartillon site. The current site or the current building that is at Zaire is not where we are going as a community. That is not an example of a purpose-driven shelter. We need to acquire land so that we can move towards doing that. And just for the sake of time and putting context on how urgent this need is, Jim O'Keefe shared with us recollections of excitement 2 years ago in 2019. Spring of 2019, when a group of community members and leaders from Madison went to a purpose-driven shelter and toured it in St. Paul. A quote from one of those folks that was there, a quote provided from one of the folks that was at the tour of the purpose-driven shelter in regards to the vote, the first time for Zaire, had to say this: 2 years ago, we had hope for a new shelter. We were talking about harm reduction. We were learning about purpose-built shelters and how effective they are. This place was awesome, and we walked away infused with ideas and hope. 2 years later, we're still fighting about a building. How long exactly do we expect the unhoused men of Madison to not have a humane place to sleep? When will enough be enough? And another article dated April 23rd of this year in the Wisconsin State Journal that reminds us that it's been 35 years as a community that we've been operating a shelter, which started in the basement of Grace Episcopal Church. So more than 35 years later, we're still wrestling with a permanent place that is humane and built for the purpose to accommodate the needs of those experiencing homelessness. We have 2 more months until 2022. For the sake of individuals who find themselves in these unsheltered situations, I hope to God year 36 only deals with progressing the development of a purpose-driven shelter that folks from our community and who are here in this meeting were so excited about designing in our community to meet needs that have never truly and adequately been met. So I say all that to say the time has passed us. The urgency is present. We have the opportunity to create these systems and the support and the services we want. We need to be able to acquire land in order to do those things. And this is the first step towards that. We are providing solutions that aren't immediate, but are as efficient as possible dealing with government processes. So I urge everyone here to please vote in support of an opportunity we missed months ago. The opportunity has presented itself again, and hopefully we'll have successful models that we can continue being a model nationwide and in our community for providing these needs. But the time is now. The urgency is past.
Thank you, Alder Curry. Alder Carter?
Thank you. I just want to say that transitional housing created the first homeless shelter at the First Congregational Church. And then when it transitioned into Porchlight, that housing was at Grace. I won't be supporting this. I didn't support it the first time. I'm going to echo what President Abbas said is obviously going to pass tonight. I don't think we have to really urge anyone to vote yes. We know who's going to vote yes. And I appreciate everybody's comments. And I also appreciate the public for being brave enough to voice their opinion, whether we agree with them or not. Being a resident that used to come to the Common Council meetings and voicing my opinion on several items, it's not always easy to get up in front of 20 plus staff and say what you really feel. It's a lot easier to be on the sofa at home and tell your family members what you feel. I will say this, and when government rushes in, it usually crash and burns. And that's whether it's the federal, state, or local. One of the things that we're really good at is having a plan and knowing where we're going. But when we rush in, it's never good. I expect this to pass tonight. I appreciate all of your comments. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Benford.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the comments from many of my colleagues tonight. I really do, but I got to tell you, Mayor, I'm deeply, deeply concerned because as we debate this option right now in front of us, and I suspect, or I could say the one we took up earlier tonight, it appears to me, Mayor, that, and maybe it's just me, that we're negating the fact that we need many, many options. We're negating the fact that people are sleeping in our parks right now as we're on this Zoom call. We're negating the fact that it's going to take so many different layers of action to even begin to make a dent in serving our houseless people. So many of you know what I do in my other jobs, so perhaps I'm a little emotional about this, but I have to tell you that through this meeting, or my very first council meeting, throughout some of the commission meetings, that I guess it's just me and my sensitivity, but it feels like there's this rhetoric where it always starts out, we deeply care about homeless people. We're committed to homeless people. We really, really care about them. But it's always followed by a but. It's too close to businesses. It's too far away from services. So it feels like in this hyperbole that we just can't win here. And throughout all our conversations about whether this is going to be a temporary shelter at this site, or maybe it's land down the road for this potential economic development out at Easttown, or maybe it's a tiny home village, and maybe Bartillon and every other opportunity that we have to make a dent. Alder Curry said it, and I've said it in the past, the clock is ticked on this. The time has come and gone. So I know my words. This isn't going to be a Perry Mason moment where those that don't want to get behind this are going to just say, wow, I get it now. I recognize that, but maybe it's cathartic that I just speak up and just say that oftentimes in our conversations, no matter where we build the intentional purpose-built shelter, and I can dream big, and I know many of my colleagues can too, and we have models out there. No matter where we build shelters, no matter where we build tiny homes, no matter where we put a cafeteria of services under one roof to help those most marginalized and vulnerable, I hate to break it to you folks, but guess what? When people are vulnerable and desperate, They're going to go to where they perceive there's disposable income. They're going to be out at East Town. They're going to be on State Street. They're going to be outside the Willie Street Co-op. So as we keep talking about, well, this isn't the right site, we need more time, we talk about transparency. But once again, in my mind, it negates the fact that we're in a crisis. We've been in a crisis for decades. So why we say, let's wait a month. Let's have city staff come up with like all the plans, that's so disingenuous to me, because the first step is securing these properties. The first step is keeping every option on the table. And then we'll find through RFPs and finding through our advocates and people in our community that we can create this vision. We can get it right, but it starts right now. It doesn't start by kicking it down the road. It doesn't start by having another neighborhood meeting where, once again, hundreds of people, we really care about the homeless. We really do, but we're done with that now. We can't wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Benford. And as a point of information, I'd like to thank you for modeling good behavior by addressing your comments to the chair. Alder Wahilihi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a couple of things have been said and a couple of comments have been made. And sometimes we had earlier a CCSC meeting and we had Robert rules. And we talked about how we shouldn't be attacking each other or our motives, but the system or the items that's on discussion. So I hope tonight people will realize that or remember that what we just learned in the CCSC, that nothing is personal. Everyone is entitled to their own policy-making decision process, and that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm not making decision based on hurting or disagreeing with my colleagues. That's my own decision, and I have my own lived experience, and I went to make that decision my own way. Bob Shaver put it very well. He said, "We are choosing to kick off homeless community in order to support the public market." Where is that compassion? We are choosing business over homeless people. Where is that compassion? People are talking about compassion, care. That what's called is privilege. That businesses are given privilege so that they can be where they are, and it's not even ready to be built. They're still doing fundraising. And we're kicking our homeless individual for a service that they already adopted. They have mental health services, detoxing services. They're already doing well. One time I talked to Jim, and the data it couldn't be better. So tonight I'm gonna vote no for this resolution for multiple reasons. One is, for those of you who are curious that I was gone at the last meeting when I was taking care of my mom, some of the comment I got was I was on vacation. That was too personal. 5 of my colleagues voted no. I wouldn't know how I voted. I vote 2 ways. One way is my compassion and care, and the other way is my strategic thinking, if this really makes sense. With Sire Road, I'm voting with my strategic thinking, which is already we have a place, temporary. We have a couple of potential sites that we can build permanent housing. And even if we choose this as a temporary, the location is too far from services. The current location of the First Street, like I said earlier, has worked well. It has services, mental health, and other services. Proximity to downtown, which is very great. And then we have potential sites for permanent relocation as per the finance committee that we had a few weeks ago. And finally, The economic deficit in East Side is really profound to look into when we see a site that's really drowning or really hurting to put a location that's not going to work. And finally, when you talk about privilege, this is the privilege. The homeless shelter or the homeless community has a need. The public market has a want. This is a want versus a need. So for those of you who are criticizing other elders that they don't have compassion or they don't care about the homeless shelter, I want you to think about it. Think about the wants and the needs. Our homeless shelter needs us. And there is a place that is already working for them until we find a permanent house or permanent place. And I am going to say, like before, I'll be voting no to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Evers.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make this quick. Folks seem to be predicting how this vote's going to go, and I'll just remind everyone, it's October 5th, 2021. October 5th, 2022, there's no scenario where we're going to have a purpose-built shelter. And I agree with Alder Harrington McKinney. That's the goal. There's no scenario by October 5th, 2023, we'll actually have a purpose-built shelter in place. And we need to be able to take care of our unhoused residents when the winter comes, which is in October of 2022. It won't be far away. So I'll be voting in favor of this because I want to make sure our homeless residents, our unhoused residents, are protected from the bitter cold that's coming. And I would encourage everyone to also consider making this purchase does not preclude us from doing other. If a better option comes, we can hold this and sell it. But this is a bird in the hand, and we've already a bird in the hand is what we need to do in order to not be delayed a year from now is still without a good option. So please encourage you to vote on behalf of residents who need protection from Wisconsin winter. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Miadze.
When I just voted for the other location, what I loved about it was two things. They talked about land banking and talked about even the possibility of even having it as a full-time permanent shelter. And that was very important to me because we all do care and we need to have our homeless people being housed. But the most important thing right now to me is that it's a location. The location in the East Town Mall is still a bad location to me. What is happening at Randall Park, I deem that it will be the same thing that will happen over at Zion Road. For the simple fact of the matter is that we don't really have a comprehensive plan on handling mental health and other addictions. It's important to me, I talked to Jim O'Keefe about this, and I think it's important that people know this. I took a ride out to check out the mental health and behavior facility in Middleton. And this location was 24-hour facility. And I wish the Dane County that funds it for federally, that actually could help us with trying to really get a grips on handling our issues with mental health and addictions that we see in our city. So we definitely need to come up with a comprehensive plan. It's not about NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's about the location. It's about making sure that the facility has all the amenities, making sure that the facility is a permanent shelter, that it's going to house people and really take care of them. So I'm going to be voting no again. And that was my primarily reason that I voted no in the beginning, because the location had nothing to do with not in my backyard. It was about releasing people in the middle of the day like they were just cattle, not really having a comprehensive plan to strategize to help people. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, is truly helping people. So I'll be voting no again.
Thank you, Alder. If no other alders in the queue wishing to speak on this item, the motion is to adopt. Anticipate that we need a roll call vote. So all those in favor of adoption, aye. Those opposed, no, as your name is called, and the clerk will call the roll.
Alder Bennett?
Yes.
Aye. Carter? Alder Carter?
Did you say Carter?
Yes.
No.
No. Conklin?
Yes.
Aye. Curry?
Aye.
Aye. Evers?
Aye.
Aye. Figueroa Cole?
Yes.
Aye. Foster?
Aye.
Aye. Furman?
Aye.
Aye. Halverson?
No.
No. Harrington McKinney?
No.
No. Heck?
Aye.
Aye. Lemmer?
Aye.
Aye. Martin?
Aye.
Aye. Miadze?
No.
No. Verveer?
Aye.
Aye. Vitiver?
Aye.
Aye. Wahelia?
No.
No. Abbas?
No.
No. Alboris?
Yes.
Aye. Benford?
Aye.
Aye. That is 14 ayes and 6 noes.
Thank you. With 14 ayes, that item passes, and that takes us to item 58. Which is Legistar 67119, supporting Madison Metro's Areas of Persistent Poverty grant application to the Federal Transit Administration. We have one registrant on item 58, Bob Schaefer of District 17.
Bob, you should have a, there you go.
Oh, I was looking for it. I think one of the things that that is lacking or misrepresented in this is that it plays on the concept of serving the low-income people, and that it's built on the whole bus rapid transit idea. First of all, the low-income people, many of them have jobs that either begin or end at a time that the bus is not running. So they are limited to having to use another source of travel. The other day at the BRT meeting, I asked the question, what is your projected, why do you need the large buses? And that Mr. Shavala said that because they expected 50,000 riders per day on the BRT. That I did some calculation on that. 50,000 people per day would be 13 million, 50,000 people in ridership. That is ridership that was greater than the total ridership of 2019, okay, of 12 million. So I think that there is no plan. There is no way that they have at this point in time for getting people off the local buses onto the BRT. I am saying that I think that at this point in time to consider funding for the north-south one when they don't even have a good plan for the east-west one, I think is there. I suggested earlier in the year that what they do is they put temporary buses as BRT to see what kind of ridership that they were going to get. They didn't have anything, they didn't want to do anything with that. So I think that my opinion is that this is a field of dreams, and they have no data that I've been shown or that they've presented that gives any indication that this is going to be successful.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our registrant? Seeing none, President Abbas, a motion, please.
Move motion to adopt.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt. Are there questions or is there discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to recording a unanimous vote in favor of item 58? Seeing no objection, we'll record a unanimous vote in favor of item 58, which is the last item on our agenda tonight. Alder Bennett, I believe it is your turn.
Hello. I would like to move the adjournment.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adjourn. Is there any objection to recording unanimous vote in favor? Seeing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.